Seattle's current homelessness crisis is in part caused by our lack of affordable housing, which in turn is tied to our historical land use and municipal zoning laws, as well as exclusionary and racist housing policies. It's no surprise, then, that people who experience homelessness in Seattle are disproportionately Black and Indigenous. From tent encampments in city parks and church parking lots, vehicle residents, to tiny house villages on city-owned land, visible homelessness has continued to grow despite efforts by the city, county, nonprofit agencies, and advocacy groups. Seattle's first zoning ordinance was enacted in May 1923 for the stated purpose of the promotion of health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the people of the city of Seattle. Like similar zoning laws in cities across the nation, Seattle's zoning ordinance was implicitly biased and racist. The Seattle Zoning Commission fueled white homeowner fears of an invasion of shacks and multi-unit dwellings in desirable residential neighborhoods with single-family housing. Redlining by banks limited home ownership by people of color. Racial restrictive covenants dictated that homes could only be lived in and sold to white people. The Ku Klux Klan saw a resurgence in the 1920s and thrived in the Seattle area. The Watcher in the Tower magazine of August 4th, 1922 states that the Ku Klux Klan in Seattle is 100% for white supremacy, restricted immigration, Protestantism, and Americanism. During the Great Depression, Seattle's worsening housing crisis resulted in multiple Hoovervilles, also called Shacktowns, including one that was our country's largest and longest lasting. Highlighting the fact that homelessness is not only the lack of housing, but also of a sense of belonging, of community. Seattle's Hooverville had its own mayor, post office, and the rudiments of a college, and it was racially integrated. The city focused on what it called its Shacktown problem, documenting the number of shacks throughout the city, most of which were concentrated south of Pioneer Square and in the Inner Bay area north of downtown. Both of these areas were city garbage dumps. Taking its title from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's speech, in which he highlighted the fact that 1/3 of the nation was ill-housed, ill-clad, ill-nourished, the WPA Federal Theater Project produced 1/3 of a Nation, a living newspaper play about the urban slum areas, land ownership, and the need for a national housing plan. In 1938, 1/3 of a Nation highlighted the fact that Seattle had one of our nation's highest percentages of substandard housing. It helped usher in new legislation by Washington State, enabling Seattle to establish a housing authority to draw on federal funds to create safe, affordable, low-income housing. Seattle's largest so-called slum area was on Yesler Hill, now called First Hill, and next to the newly built King County Hospital, Harborview. This was one of the few areas in Seattle where people of color could live. The Seattle Housing Authority was formed, led by the lawyer Jesse Epstein, who made reference to the Yesler Hill slum area being a direct pipeline of indigent patients into Harborview Hospital. He hired social worker Irene Burns to help relocate people living in the substandard housing slated for demolition. 700 new housing units were built for 3,000 residents. Yesler Terrace was our country's first racially integrated housing project. The racial restrictive covenants remained in practice until passage of the Federal Fair Housing Act in 1968. Seattle continues to have one of our country's highest percentages of land zoned for single-family homes. In 2013, the city began demolishing Yesler Terrace in order to replace it with mixed-income housing. The city partnered with the billionaire Paul Allen and his Vulcan real estate company to build high-end condominiums on the choicest land with the most expansive views. The new Yesler Terrace permanently displaced hundreds of low-income residents. In Seattle, what will it take for us to have a vision and commitment to housing for all?